My high school crush was the nurse who saved my life, then whispered, "Someone made sure you never got my letters." The night Nora Hale said my name in the emergency room as if she'd been holding onto it for 16 years, I finally understood something. Some people around you never really want you to be happy. They just want you to stay exactly where they've already decided you belong. My name is Cole Davenport, 35 years old. I manage operations for a logistics warehouse chain outside Denver, the kind of job people politely nod at before changing the subject. Nothing glamorous, nothing dramatic, just steady, in the way I learned growing up. Do your job well, don't ask for too much, and never let anyone see you're hurting. I'd been divorced for 14 months. There was no betrayal, no screaming matches, just two people realizing they'd been living together like two shadows cast on the same wall, never colliding, never warming each other. When she moved out, I bought a cactus for the windowsill. It didn't need much water. That felt about right for where I was in life. The night everything happened, I was driving home after a late overtime shift. Rain hammered the windshield, and the streetlights blurred in my rearview mirror. A pickup truck ran a red light at the Morrison intersection. I hit the brakes in time. The car behind me didn't. I woke beneath the harsh white glow of the emergency room lights at Denver Health, wearing a neck brace and breathing air so thick with disinfectant it practically had a taste. Then someone called my name. Cole Davenport? Not the way a nurse reads from a chart. The way someone says a name they've known long before seeing it written down. I turned my head slowly, because my neck had other ideas, and saw her. Dark brown hair pulled neatly back, green eyes, a tiny crescent-shaped scar beneath the right corner of her mouth, the scar she'd gotten freshman year after crashing her bike in the school courtyard. I was the one who picked up her backpack, then stood there like an idiot, unable to think of another word to say. Nora Hale. She wore navy blue scrubs, a hospital badge clipped to her chest pocket, and looked so calm that for a second I wondered if the concussion was making me hallucinate. "Cole," she said again, softer this time. "Can you hear me?" "Nora." My voice came out rough, like it hadn't been used in a week. Her expression shifted just for an instant, like a page caught by the wind. Then the professional mask returned, and she raised a pen light to check my pupils. "Follow my finger." "I've been doing that since junior year," I said. She paused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I used to watch wherever you walked in the hallways." I shrugged as much as the neck brace allowed. "Nothing more than that." She pressed her lips together, not to hide annoyance, to hide a smile. "You may have a concussion," she said. "Or maybe this is just the first time I've been honest in 16 years. She wrote something in my chart. Her hand never shook, but I noticed the tips of her ears turning red. Back in high school, Nora Hale was the kind of girl you didn't dare look at for more than 3 seconds because you were afraid she'd catch you. Not because she was arrogant. Quite the opposite. She captained the science club, spent lunch reading books instead of gossiping, and had this rare way of listening that made you feel like whatever you were saying actually mattered. At 17, that was almost unheard of. I was Cole Davenport, the plumber's son from the north side of town. I wore secondhand clothes and worked 3 evenings a week at the neighborhood grocery store. We weren't supposed to orbit the same world, but every now and then in the library, or in the hallway after class, we talked. Really talked. About books. About life's absurd little mysteries. About how a small town could somehow feel so small that it became hard to breathe. The last week of senior year, I wrote her a letter. I never called it a love letter. In my mind, it was simply the truth spoken before it was too late. I slipped it into her locker. Then I waited. She never answered. That summer, the Hale family moved to Colorado Springs. I heard it from a mutual friend. I figured I understood what had happened. She'd read my letter and chosen the kindest way possible to say no. 16 years. Eventually, I learned not to think about it anymore. The CT results came back about 30 minutes later. Nora pulled the privacy curtain closed and set the report on the bedside table. No intracranial bleeding, mild concussion. A fractured 5th rib on the right side, sprained left wrist. She looked up at me. "You got lucky. I'm lying in an emergency room wearing a neck brace. And you're able to carry on a conversation." Her eyes held mine for a beat. "With me? That's lucky." It sounded like the sentence carried 2 meanings. I wasn't sure whether she'd intended that. "Nora," I said, "when did you recognize me?" She didn't answer right away. She lowered her pen and glanced toward the hallway window, where warm yellow light slipped through the gap in the curtain. "The moment they wheeled you in," she finally said, "before I even saw your driver's license." "How?" She looked back at me. Because you still close your eyes whenever you're in pain but don't want anyone to notice. A faint smile touched her lips. You used to do that during final exams. I didn't know what to say. No one had remembered me that specifically in a very long time. I wrote you a letter, I said. The last week of senior year, Nora's hand stopped moving over the chart. I know. Her voice was so soft I almost thought I'd imagined it. You never answered. Not because I didn't want to. She turned to face me completely. Because I never got it. The room suddenly felt smaller. But I put it in your locker. I know exactly where you put it. She interrupted, her voice calm but carrying an unexpected weight. Because I looked for it. After Diane Cho told me she'd seen you slipping something into my locker. She paused. But when I opened it, there was nothing there. Diane Cho, Nora's best friend. The same girl who always stood beside Nora's locker every morning before class. I lay there without moving, feeling an old puzzle piece slowly slide into the empty place it had belonged all along. I wrote to you, too, Nora continued, after we moved to Colorado Springs. Twice. I got your home address from the school office. I told them I wanted to mail graduation cards to everyone. I never got either letter. She looked at me, not with surprise, not with doubt. I know, she said quietly. I think I finally understood that tonight. The privacy curtain was pulled aside. A man stepped into the room. He looked about 40, gray sweater, an expensive watch. The kind of man who walked into a room and somehow made everyone else seem to take up less space. He looked at Nora first, then at me. Nora, his voice was perfectly even. They told me you were in here. She didn't turn around immediately. I'm working, Marcus. I can see that. His name was Marcus Hale. Nora's cousin, that was something I would learn later. Back in high school, he'd already been a college sophomore, and every now and then he'd drive over to pick Nora up after school. He was the kind of person everyone recognized, even if no one actually knew him. Your patient? His eyes stayed on me. Yes. What's his name? Marcus. I was only asking, and I'm only doing my job. Nora's voice never rose. But I heard something underneath it, the tone of someone speaking to a person they'd grown tired of a long, long time ago. Marcus kept his eyes on me for another second. Then something clicked. I saw the exact moment it happened. His expression shifted from curiosity to something colder. Cole Davenport, he said. Not as a question. Nora turned toward him. You know him? She asked. Marcus slipped his hands into his pockets. Diane Cho told me about the guy who slipped a letter into your locker. Back then, Nora waited. And I figured it was better if you weren't distracted before transferring schools. He said it the way someone might mention taking out the trash. Casual, matter of fact. Your parents agreed. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of my heart monitor. Nora looked at me. Something had broken behind her eyes. Not pain, understanding. The kind that arrives years too late and forces you to realize you've been believing the wrong story all along. Cole's letter, she said, her voice frighteningly calm. You took it out of my locker. Marcus didn't deny it. You needed to stay focused on your future. The letters I sent him, they were never mailed. Because of you, this time, he had nothing to say. I lay there in the hospital bed, watching 16 years of misunderstanding unravel in less than 30 seconds. Nora asked Marcus to step outside. They talked in the hallway. I couldn't hear a word. All I could see were their silhouettes through the thin curtain. Nora stood perfectly straight. Marcus seemed to be explaining himself. A few moments later, Nora came back alone. She pulled a chair beside my bed and sat down. For the first time that night, she wasn't holding a chart or a pen. She simply sat there with both hands resting quietly on her knees. I'm sorry, she said. It wasn't your fault. My family. She stopped herself. They thought they were protecting me. From me, she lowered her eyes. From being distracted. That was the word they used. It sounds nicer than saying the poor kid from the north side of town. Nora looked back at me. She didn't deny it. She didn't defend them. She simply met my eyes with the same honest gaze I remembered from high school. He wasn't completely wrong about one thing, she said. I could have been distracted. Because during the first month after we moved, I wrote you 2 letters. And for the next 3 months, I checked the mailbox every single day. My throat tightened. Eventually, she continued, her voice steadier now. I convinced myself you'd read them and decided not to write back. And that was okay. I just needed to know for sure. I never got them. I know that now. We sat quietly for a while. Outside, The hospital kept moving. Carts rolled past. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Someone at the far end called for a doctor. The world didn't stop simply because two people were mourning 16 years they could never get back. "Do you still have them?" I asked. "The letters." Nora was silent for a second. Then she took out her phone, opened her notes app, and handed it to me. Not the original letters. A typed copy. Small text. No formatting. At the bottom was a single note, retyped from the handwritten original. September 2009. My new bedroom. Colorado Springs. I read the first line. Just the first line. Because it was enough. Cole, I don't know whether you want to hear this, but I still think about that conversation we had in the library back in March. And I think I should say this before distance turns it into something I only ever dare admit to myself. I handed the phone back without saying a word. Nora took it, glanced down at the screen as if making sure those words were still there. "I don't need you to say anything tonight," she said. "You've just been in an accident. You're hurting." "I am," I admitted. "But this is the first time in 16 years that I don't feel like I misunderstood something that mattered." Nora looked at me. "That," I said quietly, "isn't something you can buy with any painkiller." She smiled, just a little. Her eyes shimmered with tears. But it was real. They kept me overnight for observation. Nora's shift ended at 2 in the morning. Before she left, she stopped by my room one last time. She placed a small piece of paper on the bedside table, a phone number, and underneath it, in her neat handwriting, "This time, I'm delivering it myself." I stared at that little note long after she had gone. Then I picked it up, folded it carefully, and slipped it into the pocket of my pale blue hospital gown. An ordinary pocket, holding the most important thing I owned that night. 6 months later, Nora and I met on a Saturday morning at a little coffee shop near Washington Park. No one had arranged it. No one was watching to see whether we'd be a good match. Just two adults, hot coffee, and a conversation that should have happened years before. Marcus apologized to Nora. She accepted his apology, not because she'd forgotten, but because she understood those were two very different things. As for me, I bought another chair for my apartment balcony, not because I'd suddenly become an optimist, just because sometimes you have to believe someone might come and sit beside you. And sometimes, you're right. What would you do if the person who disappeared from your life hadn't chosen to leave, but someone else had made that choice for them? And have you ever discovered that a misunderstanding wasn't an accident at all, but something someone deliberately created? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.